Lisa. I have a new sketch for us today that has a familiar shape. If you scrapbooked years ago, you probably remember cutting all your photos into circles, and sometimes we got carried away and did hearts and stars and all sorts of things. And I think that can often be one of the biggest regrets, is that we overcropped some of our photos, because back then we only had the copy that was printed from film. We didn't have digital. So, because I'm talking 10 years or more ago. But I've noticed recently that cutting photos in circles has kind of become back in fashion. And of course now with digital photography, it's fairly easy to store and then reprint another copy of something if you want it a different way. In fact, you'll see I have a couple of copies printed already of one of these photos, and may still have to do another one to get the size that I'm looking for. So doing things in circles and all can be a really fun, different way to do your scrapbook page. Now, I still have the Creative Memories circle cutters. I bought these, I think it was 2001, when I was introduced. I had been scrapbooking for years, but I didn't know there was this whole hobby around it until I went to a Creative Memories party. And I understand you can buy the blades again. I have not gone in and researched this, but I read that somewhere, so I'll have to look into that and see if you can still buy the blades. But however you go about cutting circles, whether you have punches or you use your die cutting systems, whatever you want to do, that's what this layout is about today, is 3 circular photos. Now, you could do rectangles and do the same kind of thing. They wouldn't have to be circles, but I think the circles add kind of a fun element to it. My photos are from a little hiking trip that we made, just local place that we hadn't been in quite some time, and we wanted to emphasize how dry it was. We had a very, very dry summer. You could have walked across the river without your feet getting wet if you were very careful, and I don't think I've ever known this particular river to be that low. So that was kind of interesting. We did not try to walk across the river. We stayed to the pass like we were supposed to. But I have a photo of my husband and the river one. Those are easy. And I want to do also a photo here in the middle of the two of us. And I first printed this one before I decided how I wanted to arrange the page. And it's really too small. And this one, Goldilocks says, is too big. So I have got to either work with one of these or reprint. But what I'm going to do is use my Creative Memories cutters. I've gone through the sizes and figured out that the red cutter with this one makes the outside cut, and the photo will actually be cut with the red cutter with the inside of this one. So that's how they're going to lay. So that's probably, that's a little more border than my sketch shows, but that's just the cutters that I had to work with. That's the only drawback I found to the Creative Memories cutting systems, is not all the sizes represented. But there are lots of cutting systems, of course, that have all the sizes represented, or you can use your die cutting systems. But for simplicity's sake, when I'm doing things like cutting photos or something I just want to do right here, really just for photos on my work surface here, I like to use the silhouette cutter. So the Creative Memories cutters. So that's what I'm going to use. I could do this on the silhouette, but that's the one I'm going to use, and we'll just have to see what to do with the page with the photo with the two of us. Now, for papers, this sketch has 3 designer papers that we do a little bit at the bottom and a little bit at the top, and they're 4-inch wide strips. So I need some papers to go with the colors here in blues and greens mostly. Use this photo of my husband, the trees, to help guide us in picking papers. I went through my scrap drawers and I had this green paper that I really liked, and it is wide enough. It is more than 4 inches, so I can use this one. I also had this paper that I'm considering, and this somewhat new collection that I bought on clearance at Hobby Lobby has a few things. This is, I think it's We Are Memory Keepers. I think I've thrown away the packaging now, but I liked this blue out of it. So let's see what else is in here. There's a bright green, blue. What else we got? I don't think I want the polka dots with my other circles, and I don't really want damask designs. Those are too formal. There's another green, but it's really soft. I think I'm going to go with these 3. So 2 from my scraps and 1 of these new papers. So we're going to cut those down to 4-inch strips, and I'm going to go ahead and cut my photos using, and I want to get this right, I want to use the inside of this one with the red blade to do my cutting. So let's go ahead and do those. I did go ahead and look up these cutters. You can buy them at the Creative Memories website, and I assume from the Creative Memories consultants. They were priced at $7.50 each, and you could buy them individually, which was nice because you used to have to buy them as a set. And I always used the red cutter. The blade wears down faster than the rest. So I think I'm going to go with this smaller photo. And I'm just going to have to come up with a way to kind of conceal that white or trim it off or something. I can always, print out a larger one later once the layout is finished. Now I trimmed down my papers to 4 inches wide. Cutting the photos with the Creative Memories cutter made sense. However, I should have, and I wish I had, it would have been easier, taken these papers and used my silhouette cutter to cut the circles out of the papers. Because I could have laid them out on my mat and worked out, just a simple cut and had all of them exactly the same. Because what happens here is I measured up, and I used my sketch to see how far up I wanted to go. And so I measured up and I marked what was the center of each of the circles. But when I went to cut them, I didn't apparently get my cutter on there perfectly centered. And I think I was going up 7 inches, and they're all a little different. So when I go lay them out on my paper, they're not the same height, as you'll see here in just a second as I'm laying them out on a white background, so I have something to journal on. It's about this point that I realized that my photos are not even, that the one in the middle is lower than the ones on the outside because I just didn't measure correctly. And so then the next best thing I could do would be to go ahead and line them up with a ruler. And I was going to trim them off, and I decided then the easiest thing would be just to go ahead and glue everything down and then just take the paper to the paper trimmer and cut it that way. And that's what I ended up doing. And I trimmed out of my video quite a bit of this. I fiddled a fair amount getting these things right, getting them lined up good, and doing the gluing down. But as I say, if I had done this, the cutting of the photos with Creative Memories cutters was perfect, but if I had cut the circles out with the silhouette out of 4-inch by 12-inch pieces of paper, I could have had them all the same and it would have been a lot less trouble. So, you'll just learn as you go along when you're doing things. So I mentioned that because if you do this particular layout, that's what I would recommend. It's not that you can't do the circle cutters, and maybe you'll do a better job of measuring where you put your circles. And see, what I'm having to do here is use my ruler to kind of line up where each of the circles should go. And then I just take that to the paper trimmer and trim the top off. So it came out fine in the end. It just took a little more fussing than I had expected. And I used some zig marker to glue down those little tips. Now I'm going to use a marker to write in my journaling, and that came out perfect. I didn't plan it out. Sometimes I'll plan out my journaling, what I'm going to say, but this time I just sort of winged it as I was writing along here, and I had just enough room to say what I wanted to say. Now next we're going to go to the silhouette to work on our title. I'm creating part of my title in Silhouette Studio because it allows me to select the font and the size and the placement of the text. I'm actually going to have a multi-word title. It's going to be the same word over and over again, but you'll see that the words get smaller, and it helps to tell the story of the low water. So I'm going to select the text tool and type in the word low in all caps. And let's play with this a little bit. I'm going to change it to regular Arial font and bold because I want it to be a little bit thicker than the regular text. I also want it to be a little bit larger, and this time when I change the size, I'm going to use the point option down here and go ahead and make this 96 point. And when you change the point, you type in the number or you use the down arrow to select it and press enter. And it won't set unless you do that. If you just click away somewhere else, it doesn't take. Alright, so I put in the word low and 96 point. I'm going to double click and come in here, and I want to put in some more versions of the word low. Type it right. Now right now it's going to make them all that 96 point, just like the first one. But I'm going to be making some changes to them. I'm going to select each word, and when you're in the edit mode for your text, whatever you do to your selection happens only to that selection. So I'm choosing low, the second one, and I'm going to drop it 12 points to 84 points. Point is a measurement of size in fonts. Typically 72 points is an inch, but that varies depending on the font. That used to be the old rule 20 some years ago when we had very few fonts to choose from, but now fonts have changed, so the point size it's relative for a particular font. All right, but of course, if you decrease the number, they're going to get smaller. So that one was 84. This third one is going to be 72, going down 12 points each time. Just so I have some increment of making it smaller. 60 points. And finally, this last one will be at 48 points. Okay. All right. Now, another thing I want to do with this is I want to center these so that one's under the other. And if I cut them out the way they are, I'd have a whole bunch of letters to glue on. I want them joined together. But I want them to create this sort of slowly decreasing in size pyramid of words. And one of the ways I'm going to do that is adjust the line spacing with this slider bar down here to get it smaller and smaller until they start to touch. Now a couple of them aren't touching yet, but we'll get there. All right, so I'm getting the first three for sure are touching. If I go any smaller with the slider bar, I'm going to get to the point where I don't think you're going to be able to see the words really good. Okay. Now, to get these last two with the rest of the text, I'm going to click on the text, right click, and choose, I can either do weld or I can do ungroup. And either one is going to split them apart so that I can take a particular word, like this one here, and move it up until it gets close to the other words. You can zoom in a little bit so you can see these better. And then this bottom one, and I'm just using the arrow keys on my keyboard to move up to where they touch. Now, everything is connected together, or connected one word to another. I'm going to select everything, right click, and choose weld. And it's actually going to create three elements, the W's, the O's, and the L's. And I can work with that. I can glue on three different things. And what I get is this really neat text that's going to show me low water. So now I'm ready to cut this out on my silhouette. So I cut my letters out of both green and craft. I really thought I would want them in green, but I had a lot of green on this layout. And then so I cut them in craft, and I also looked at using the craft as a shadow, laying the green on top of that, but I decided I would just go with the craft because I have a tree cut here with green cardstock, and then the trunk is cut out of some wood grain designer paper. I'm going to give it a little bit of ink. This was garden green cardstock from Stampin' Up, and I had some garden green ink. Give it a little bit more dimension. And what I did with this photo is I found some wood pieces, and I thought I could add some words. I considered doing words top at the top and bottom, but I decided to do just a word at the top, and I'm going to put some washi tape over the bottom to kind of cover that white part. Got a little too much glue. This page was maybe a little more challenging than I planned. It's just one of those pages. Sometimes things just take longer and it's not really anything about the layout, just, can't find your adhesive or whatever. It just seems to take a little longer than you thought. So I'm lining up the low so that those letters are all nice and straight, and I did have to get my head in the way here. Sorry about that. Okay, this page has been going on a long time. If you look at my sleeves when I'm when I'm doing these videos, if I've got different clothes on, like 4 or 5 different things, it's taken me 4 or 5 days to get a page done. I don't know how many days I've done other things, but I've been going back and forth on this page. So I didn't film this last little bit, which I just knocked this off. I just glued it down. I didn't film picking those washi tapes and stuff, but that's just some minor little details. And I went ahead and glued this down and got my heart on there. I have a little sticker that I want to add to this from October Afternoon. And so here's our finished page with the circles, as we talked about in the video, and then some cool text with low getting smaller as it goes down, and then water out of chipboard letters and our tree cut on the silhouette. So we got some cute pieces to this page, and it's a nice happy page. So thank you so much for joining me. You'll find the sketch over on my blog, and if you like the video, I love to get a thumbs up. If you have a silhouette, I'd love for you to check out my new class, Using Your Silhouette for Titles and Text. We do all kinds of really neat things with our cutter for creating your own custom titles. Thanks so much. Bye.